And now Mr. Steve Sherrill with his fantastic segment. What do you want to talk about? He got us started last week. I didn't think we'd ever stop. So, Mr. Sherrill, welcome.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Tonight we're going to talk about what do you have on your workbench, but something a little bit different. It's also what you have under your workbench, or as I like to call it, spring cleanup. Believe me, I don't know how so much stuff just gets around on the floors, everywhere. And there comes a time when you even get sick of it yourself. I do a lot of work with the Dremel on plastic, and you know what you get with that. I also do a lot of cutting and just putting stuff together for RC battery power. And I just got a lot of stuff around. And so the other day I said somebody was going to come over. And so I said, well, this is it. You know, I put it off long enough, and now it's time to clean up. So I first started with my little picker and started picking the stuff up off the floor so I didn't have to bend down and pick up off the rugs. And, you know, that took me a while. Filled up the trash can. I have all kinds of boxes. Had to break those down, get those out. Put all my tools away. Got everything organized again. Can't find anything now. You know, and this happens 3 or 4 times a year, or as needed, I like to say. You be absolutely surprised what you find out that you find. You know, I found a few screws that I couldn't find that fell on the floor. Just parts, things like that you know they fall somewhere and you can't find them, and you just say, well, I'll just buy another one. But I try to organize things, and I always wonder what other people do. You know, because whenever I go over to their house, they're always, you know, real organized. And so tonight's discussion is going to be, how do you organize your work area? Now, I also, I have sliders under the layout. I have shelves under my layout. I have a large layout, 24 by 32. So I can hide the stuff, but it doesn't mean it's always, you know, nice and neat. We know how that goes, right? And so I just kind of wonder what you do when, you know, how do you clean up your workbench? Somebody like Martin, for instance, or Tom, who are working all the time on stuff. I think Martin said he had 5 cars on the table now he's working on. You know, you have parts laying around. Tom is scratch building. You know, I don't know what you guys do when you're really working on stuff. And I'm always out in my room working all the time. If anybody has something they want to add to this, and because I think this is really worth a discussion of how we organize, how we keep our areas clean. You know, are we ready for somebody to drop in to see us and visit anytime, or do we, you know, kind of get embarrassed when we don't have things clean? So, Tom, you're a good one to help me on this.
Yeah,
what do you?
I have a couple rules. I never leave any supplies on the layout. Like if I'm putting ballast down, I temporarily have a ballast container. When I'm finished off, you know, the layout's always clean. There's never anything on the layout, just as a side note. It's always, The only thing on the layout are things that should be on the layout, just as a little rule I have. And that keeps the layout, always, not that it's not built up too much, but there's a lot of bench work now. But there's a lot of flat spaces that you could just set things on. And I don't want to go down that road where all my supplies are sitting on the layout. So I have a rule. I don't put anything on the layout that's not supposed to be on the layout.
How about on your workbench, Tom?
And on the workbench, I also have this other thing I do every Thursday. Every Thursday I have to put 1 hour in cleaning up the workbenches. And I don't know if I did a video on my very first video for Jim was all these custom cabinets I put underneath the layout, and the big row to my right here of bench workbenches. There's cabinets underneath them, so just so it doesn't get totally cluttered, every Thursday I say I have to put an hour in, not modeling, but cleaning up and readjusting everything. And it's just a little thing I do. 1 hour a week, clean, every Thursday is a day. I just clean things up. That's what I do.
I mean, obviously that makes it much easier for you to scratch build stuff, when you could find everything.
I hate looking for stuff, and that's why I have these IKEA cabinets. They're relatively inexpensive. And I have all my wooden supplies all in there, and it's all pretty well organized. And I'm like a reformed alcoholic, because the last layout I had looked like a hand grenade went off in the place. And that's when I vowed that I'd never do that again. And the layout room was a mess. The workbenches were a mess. It was in my other house. So this time, my mantra a year ago was no compromises. And that went with the storage and organization. It just makes it so much easier when you don't have to play the game. What did I do with that, that grant line window? What did I do with that? Whatever. Everything has its place. And but I wasn't always like that. That's just how I am now. So I don't know if that makes any.
Well, the type of modeling you do, the quality. I mean, I figured that she would be real organized.
I am now, but before it was chaos.
But actually being organized and not being organized doesn't really indicate the quality of the modeling that a person would do. Some people can, have a mess and they turn out really, really top-notch models.
Yeah, it's really about not having to look for everything all the time.
Yeah,
you have to waste half an hour looking for something that you have, and if everything has its place, you're finding it's in moments, not in minutes or hours.
Now that I'm starting to dabble a little bit into this G-scale thing, I'm doing a lot of bashing on that and painting, installing battery powered things like that. So now I've got stuff that's huge.
Yeah.
It's big, so it takes up a lot of the space. I hope to show in the future some of the work I've done on that, just to show how really huge the stuff is and what you can do with just a little bit of work on that and just enhance it a whole lot. Let me ask Neil Hunter from Australia. I'll always call on the Australians. Hi, Neil. How do you keep your workshop organized? What do you do? Do you can't hear you. Neil, can't hear you.
That's because he's in Australia.
Neil, you're muted.
Yeah. No, I don't.
I'm trying to unmute him, but he's.
My wife's always on my back saying, clean your workroom up, clean your workroom up. So there's my answer. I don't do it.
Oh, of course, you give in to that, right?
Yeah, yes.
I mean, we have a newer modeler like Doc Lovelace. Doc, what do you do to keep yourself organized?
I don't think you can see me right now, but you can hear me.
Yeah.
But we just moved. So beforehand, my model room was an absolute disaster. About 6 months into it, at first it looked pretty nice, but about 6 months into it, I just noticed stuff was everywhere. So my wife, the wonderful lady that she is, went around to different places like Michael's and Walmart and different places and found me a lot of stackable what are these called, honey? Cabinets or shelves or something? But basically, they're all stackable, and they have clear fronts. And so that way, what I do is, and this is what I did for the move. And once we moved, I'm going to keep it like this forever because I take a like a dry erase marker, and on the front, I just write on whatever's in there right now. And I have some that are probably some cabinets and drawers that are probably, I would say you could hold 3 or 4 gallons of water. And then the other ones that are tiny where you would just put, N scale figures in, you could hold maybe 200, 300 N scale figures. And they're all stacked and they're all labeled. And at any time, if I need to, I can just take a little wet rag and wipe it off and relabel it. And if it's something that's going to stay for a significant period of time, I can actually take a label maker and put an actual label on that. And that only came about just because we moved. If we hadn't moved, I would have probably just had a disaster area for a while. But kind of like what Tom said, I mean, I knew where everything was. It looked like a disaster to somebody else, but when I walked in there, I could tell you where anything was. But I won't do that again though. I since it's organized now, I really like it the way it is. Everything's put up. But the most important thing is that it's put up, but everything is visual. Like I can see it. I don't have to pull out 19 boxes to get to that box that's in the bag just because I have it written down somewhere in a log where it is. I don't have to do that. It's all right here and it's visual. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. I try to put have small parts in boxes, but you have so many things after 40 or 50 years collecting that you just can't keep track of all of it. Well,
hey, can you see me right now?
No, I can't see you.
Well, if there's a way to share my video, I don't know how to do it because I'm on my cell phone, but I was going to show you some of these containers that I have. Here we go. Okay, can you see me now?
No.
I can.
No,
I see you.
There you are.
Okay. Well,
Gotcha.
like this is an example of some of so like this is one thing that she purchased where it opens up and it locks, and then each one of these is individual containers. And being as this works for me because I'm an N scale. So everything that I have is absolutely tiny. Sorry, my dog's making a mess, but and here's another example, just all kinds of different trees that I have, and I have all of them labeled, but it's labeled, like I said, with a dry erase marker. So if, in the future it needs to be something different, it can. So that's a really good idea too. If you work with small things, I don't know what to tell you, O scale guys, though. I don't know. I don't have enough square footage for
that. We have to work fast. We don't have much laying around.
Yeah, exactly.
But I know when you start to build your N-scale layout, you'll probably have some tools on the layout when you're laying track and stuff like that. I know when I built my layout, I would just, if I only did 6 feet of track a night or something, I would be having the tools and my supplies 6 feet away, then I move it 6 more feet the next day. And it was kind of it was really something to see when I got down to the last 6 feet. I had all this stuff to get rid of. But
Hey,
you know,
Steve, can I
yes,
throw one thing out that I think affects what your workbench or your whole work area might look like? And it's how many tasks you're working on, how many either kits or how many locomotives or cars or something. When I'm working on just one project, maybe one structure, it's pretty easy to keep my workbench under control. And when I finish one operation of it, I'll put away the tools I was using for that. Then when I start the next operation, get out those tools so that I don't leave a lot of stuff laying around. But if I'm
yeah,
doing 2 or 3 different projects at the same time and I'm moving stuff to the side to work on something else, that it gets harder because I'll leave out the tools for one thing because I'm going to be using them again, but I push them to the side with that project while I work on something else. Maybe paint's drying for one, or glue is drying, or I'm waiting for a part to come. And that can really add to how cluttered the workbench and the whole work area gets. I'll put stuff on the shelves on top of other stuff because something's coming in for it that I'm going to put on in another couple days. But in the meantime, it's in the way. So kind of how many things you're working on can influence how big a mess you have.
You know how I fix that?
How you do that?
I have 5 workbenches.
Tom, I would say with you, only 5?
I'm looking at them. There's 5 of them.
I hadn't
There's a
thought
way
about
around everything.
I found one thing that helps when you're working on your layout is to have a movable cart. Put the stuff on when you're working instead of stuttering shoveling it all over the layout when you're working. It's impossible. I put it on the cart, and if I need it, I grab it, and when I'm done, I put it back on the cart. And when
I've got
somebody
one of
comes
those
over, I
too.
shove the cart underneath the layout.
Although mine's 5.5 feet tall, but I've got 2 of them actually that are on wheels.
That works good.
Yeah, I mean, it really does because yeah, it does.
well, I try to save a lot of the stuff that I'm working on. As far as if I don't have a part, I'm waiting for a part, I have to put it somewhere else. I don't have a large workbench anymore. So, you know, like I say, I'm working on G-scale stuff now, and just the parts alone, when you break it down, it's big. You know, there's no way you can do away with all that kind of thing. I have moved my micro layouts into another part of the house. And when it gets warmer a little bit, I'll be out in the other building, a 12 by 30 building, which gives me a lot more room to work in. But right now, it's kind of crowded on that little desk, you know. But I'll manage. You know, I just want, if somebody comes, I want it to look halfway decent when they come in the door, so they're not overwhelmed by the clutter.
I have here, it's Larry McDonald here. It's roll around carts and they got shelving in them. And you can take these cases out. They're clear plastic. And what's nice about them, you can take them to your workbench and they open up. Am I in camera? Or no, like that.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I've been buying quite a few of these. They've gone up in price since I started, but that helped for the smaller parts. I'm in O scale, so I know what you mean about size of some of the stuff. But all the small parts and my tools and glues and things like that.
Where are you getting those? Where are you buying?
Michael's, and I think from some of the large places you can order online, you can get them.
Yeah.
I got mine through Michael's.
Yeah, you're right though. They are starting to get very, very expensive.
They've over doubled. Sometimes you get them on sale, and that's why I wait for sales. I have some other ones too, and they're everything I've got. I'm trying to change underneath the layout to have on rollers. Plus, I'm building little flats on rollers for any heavy stuff like my airbrush and whatnot. So if I have to go underneath the layout to do wiring, I have a DCC layout. And there's wiring, and so yeah, that does help to roll it out. But I've got way too much stuff.
I think we all do, Larry.
I could
I
launch
think-
into a sub. I have a layout behind me here. It's ON3 and it fills a room 26 by 14. And it's just filled underneath too with stuff. And there's probably enough to build 3 other layouts, which I've dreamt of doing, but I haven't got the room.
Well, you got a lot of stuff in that room. You can't do without, right?
Yeah. And I just can't go to a show and not bring back something.
You owe it to them.
That's why I used to, well, you used to see me at Kimberton, and because when I switched to narrow gauge, the shops didn't, well, there was one shop that had it down in St. Catharines and he finally closed, and he used to trade, and that's how I got rid of all a very large HO layout and with extra stuff, of course. And but that's when I would go down to Kimberton and I would save up my money to just, that was a buying spree because the stuff was there, which I'd never see in Canada. So I knocked
Yeah.
myself out, you know.
Well, listen, do us a favor. Take some pictures of it and send them to Chris Course and show us some of your layout or some of the stuff that you're working on the in the My Bill section. I'd love to see it.
Well, I'm just starting back in. I've been very busy. I'm working on two little engines here for a museum. It's HO, and it's River Rossi 440s, and the first one I built for 20 years ago, it finally wore out. So I had to buy like 3 engines to get all the parts to cobble one together again. It's almost finished.
I'd love to see it. I really would love to see that kind of model.
I don't know how to present something. Yeah, I can send stuff to Chris. I can probably send something to your newsletter. And
that would be great.
Kind of stuff I can handle, but yeah, right now I have to get up to speed on the computer. But yeah.
Well, everybody on the show has to get up to speed on the computer. You can ask anybody about my problems with the computer.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I feel like I'm back in the starting gate, and the lights just turned off. So the
You're
race is
not
over.
alone.
I totally understand. I totally understand.
You know, I had one more thing that I was thinking of. I'm trying to convince my wife to let me do it, but I noticed I try to think 3-dimensionally, and I look around my room and I notice how much negative space and unused space is above like the 7-foot or 8-foot area.
Yes.
Even in my office, I mean, there's just nothing up there, and we had 12-foot ceilings, and I really, really wanted to put some floating shelves or something up there, and instead of having everything under the layout, put everything up on top, because essentially that space is just never used.
Right.
And it's a shame that it's never used. But that's one idea I also had to kind of help, maybe stuff that you're not going to use for this particular layout or maybe next month. But, like you said, I'm never going to throw it away. Maybe put it up high,
So
Yeah.
Steve, just
scared of letters.
a comment. I actually tore it out, but I had a layout in a bedroom a number of years ago and basically replicated the layout shape with a shelf that was about 14 inches below the ceiling, and then put a fascia on that with lighting. And it was actually hung with chains, and there was a board at the front of the fascia that actually gave it a little stiffness, and then cleats on the back. And I actually did a linoleum on it and then going down the wall, so it was coved. So what you got was a nice about 6'8", 6'9" sky that you looked into and you looked into the layout. But then above that, you had this very large shelf area. You could put lots of stuff in it. Actually, it would fit a banker's box up there quite effectively. So that is a good idea. You can if you do that right at the beginning, when you plan out your fascia, you can take advantage of that space. And if you have a 9-foot ceiling,
as long as you're not scared to maybe climb up a ladder, a few rungs or something. I mean, that's the only downside I saw is that if you were a little bit older and you don't want to worry about climbing on a ladder or you can't quite reach it, it would pose a problem. But if that's not an issue for you, I think it's a great use of that, what seems to always be wasted space, especially in a workspace. Use every square inch, every cubed inch that you have in that room, use it.
Well, I'm gonna let my wife climb those ladders.
We always put those boxes up high and put pieces of cotton on the bottom, look like clouds.
Wow. Well, I like that overhead. That's a good idea. I have some room. I think one part of my building had 9-foot ceilings. And I could have 8 in the back, so I could just use the 9-footers.
Yeah, you put the stuff up there that you don't need tomorrow, you don't need next month, but you're not gonna throw it away, and it's out of sight, out of mind, but it's safe, and you could categorize it and everything, know where everything is. I mean, that's what I really want to do for this stuff. I'm not going to throw away.
Well, Doc, you got those are good ideas.
Absolutely.
I liked what we shared tonight. Well, I think that's it. I think we've done it.
So I think that's great. Before we leave you though, Steve, I got to ask you a question. It's been worrying me. What's the logo on your hat?
What, this?
Yes.
That's Dead Rail.
Dead Rail Society. Many years ago, they had, when the battery power first was introduced into the smaller scales, they came up with the name Dead Rail Society out in California. There was a group and so I got permission to use their name. And then at Al Judy's meet, J.J. Clark and George Serra made T-shirts and hats. And so I got T-shirts and hats with all that on it. And so this hat just about had it. I had a brown hat, and one of the guys in California saw my hat, and he wanted one. And I had more than that, so I sent it to him. So I always wear it. And you know who the only people ask? Only one person out of 10 years wearing this hat has asked me, and it was a woman. I don't know what she thought. Braille, what the hell? But yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, I thought it started with Bob Gibbs.
I've never seen the logo before.
Yeah, and the shirts, I got pockets on with little skull and crossbones and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I wear them all.
That's neat. That really is.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I still want one, by the way.
Well, you're not Dead Rail yet.
Yeah.
We haven't got you.
No, not yet, but that's a yet. Not yet.
I haven't gotten you. It's the first train show. I'm gonna get an N-scale engine. And I'm gonna Dead Rail that thing.
Well, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it. But Steve, thanks so much for the night. Great segment. Thank you.
Bye.
Well, that's pretty much our show for the night, except for the caboose segment. So, Pat?
Welcome to Train Gamia, a groundbreaking family-friendly event where you can have fun mastering the tracks. Up to 6 players can join the action simultaneously, each aiming for a spot on the coveted high score board. Can you outsmart your friends and maybe even claim the top spot? Become a master driver and ensure that either passengers or goods arrive on time. Along the way, you must keep an eye out for signals and observe the speed limits. You get bonus points by using the horn and light at the right time. Children as young as 6 can join the excitement thanks to our Easy Drive mode.
I was really impressed with that game when I saw it. I'd never seen anything like that before. And I do think we keep talking about how do we attract young kids and young people into the hobby. To me, that's one way of doing it, because that would be a lot of fun, I think. I would enjoy doing that, even though I'm not a kid anymore. But anyway, that's our caboose. That's our show for this evening. Thank you so much for coming. Hope you've enjoyed it. most importantly, hope you learned something. That's what it's all about.